All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a pretty interesting sports betting strategy, one that promises to shift you away from just betting on gut feelings and move you toward a more systematic, data-driven way of thinking.
So, right off the bat, the source material we're looking at throws down this huge challenge. It basically says, hey, you know how you bet, picking winners? Forget about it. That's a pretty bold way to start, because that's how almost everyone bets.
Okay, so if you're not supposed to bet on who wins, then what do you bet on, right? Well, this strategy claims to have the answer, and apparently it all boils down to one specific number that the bookies are kind of hoping you overlook. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of the strategy itself, we kind of have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. I mean, why do so many bettors consistently lose money in the long run? And according to the source, the reason is actually super simple. Most of us bet with our hearts. We back our favorite teams, we get caught up in all the media hype, and we rely on these gut feelings instead of having a solid, repeatable system. And the results? Well, you know it. You just watch your bankroll slowly and painfully disappear.
So what's the secret sauce here? Well, the core idea isn't about trying to be smarter than the bookie. It's about finding what the author calls a glitch by basically using the bookmaker's own data against them. The whole philosophy here is that the bookmakers, with their crazy powerful algorithms, actually leave behind little clues in the odds they set. The secret, according to this strategy, is just learning how to read those clues to find what's called value. And this slide, this really shows you the huge mental shift we're talking about. You're moving away from emotional betting, the hype, the feelings, the guesswork, and you're moving into system betting. That's all about cold, hard data, filters, and calculation. So the entire system is built around this thing the author calls a cold, calculated filter. And notice the words here. It's not about finding a winner. It's about spotting a very specific moment in a game, a specific match condition that makes the odds, the market, vulnerable. All right, so that's the theory. But how does this actually work in the real world? Let's walk through the exact steps. So, believe it or not, this entire strategy really just comes down to a super specific 4-step process, and it has to be done at a very particular time. You scan, you validate, you wait, and then you strike.
Okay, so let's break down those first 2 steps. First, the scan. You're using a site like Flashscore, and you're just looking for any game that is 0-0 at halftime. Simple enough. But then comes the validate step. This is where you filter. You're diving into the team stats, and you're specifically looking for teams that love to attack, teams with a history of scoring a lot of goals, not teams that are famous for their defense. You want, as the source says, action-packed environments. Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. The author says this is what separates the real pros from the amateurs. You do not, under any circumstances, place your bet during halftime.
Nope. Instead, you've got to be patient. You let the second half kick off, and you just watch. You're monitoring the game for about 5, maybe 10 minutes. And as that clock keeps ticking, with the score still at 0-0, the odds for a goal being scored start to climb. And that's exactly what you're waiting for.
And all this waiting, all this patience, it all leads to the single most important concept in this whole strategy, finding the value bet.
And here it is. This is the magic number. This is the glitch that the whole strategy is built around. You are waiting for the odds on the over 0.5 goals market to creep up to 1.5, or even 1.6. That is your sweet spot. So why that number? Well, the logic is that you're getting what's called a value bet. Think about it. You've already filtered for 2 teams that love to attack and score goals, right? So the actual probability of a goal being scored is still pretty high. By waiting and getting odds of 1.5 or 1.6, you're getting a price that is way better than the bet's true statistical worth.
So what you're really doing here, according to the source, is taking advantage of a tiny temporary hiccup in the market. The bookie's AI probably expected goals from the start, but because it's still 0-0, you get to swoop in and grab a much better price on an outcome that was probably going to happen anyway.
Okay, so when you put it all together, what's the big picture here? What's the main takeaway? It's really about completely reframing how you think about betting. You're shifting away from a weekend gamble and moving towards a structured system.
And honestly, this quote from the source just sums it all up perfectly. The goal isn't just to win a bet here and there. It's about putting a system in place that, over the long haul, is designed to create consistent results.
But, this leaves us with one final and I think really important question to chew on. A system like this gives you structure, it gives you a data-driven edge, but can any system, no matter how clever or disciplined it is, ever truly take the gamble out of gambling? Something to think about.